Hey, everybody. Welcome. Good to see you all. Welcome, everybody. We're just a few kind of announcements, sort of general housekeeping announcements. The time for our Educators Forum is going to be changing back to the time that we originally had it at noon. I sent out a poll, and it came back really strongly that it worked for many more people's schedules to do it at noon for people who thought that they could participate in that. So not this week, not next week, but the week after that. So starting in November, we're going to be moving back to noon as our time for our Nature Journal Educators Forum. And I know that there are some people who that time doesn't work for, but it will work for most of us. It'll kind of get us a sort of a larger kind of community, and so I really apologize if that timing doesn't work for anybody here. But there we go. So a little housekeeping announcement. In 2 weeks, we're going to be changing our time, and which does make it more difficult if you are in London. So sorry about that, Ray Vata. You're still going to be there?
Both times are okay.
Does it still work for you?
Yeah, the other ones are go a little over time, but Educators Forum is okay.
Okay. Excellent. What I wanted to do is just to check in and see if anybody's has figured out any new approaches, techniques, and strategies for helping you with teaching nature journaling online. If there are any tricks or hacks that you found, this would be a great time to share those, and so that we can kind of all take advantage of these things in our meetings. And so what I want everybody to do is just sort of think for a minute and try to come up with a few ideas that you want to share. And then what we're going to do is just going to ping pong around. And so I'm going to start, and I'm going to drop one in. And so this is a less technical one, but this is something that I'm seeing is just sort of more and more I think helps if you're teaching in this sort of Zoom space. And what it is about discussions and conversations. And if, like right now, you may be, I'm gonna, let's see, spotlight for everybody, like boom, there's me big on your screen. So I'm talking to you, right? But things get a lot more interesting. Ivea, could I bring you in on this? All right, if the minute we have this format, right, and we're talking to each other, right, and there's some, oh, I'm on that side on your screen?
Yes, you're over.
Oh, okay. So I didn't mean to turn my back to you. Sorry about that. So I wish Zoom had us arranged the same way, because then we could kind of do this whole kind of, partridge family sort of thing.
If you look the other way and you high five, we could high five each other.
Okay, ready?
1, 2. We tried.
It's almost as bad as watching people try to sing happy birthday simultaneously on a Zoom meeting. But this ends up being really, really useful in conversation space. And let's say we were able to bring Amy in on this. Amy, can I bring you in on this? All right, so I was initially just sort of bringing people in without kind of giving them some heads up and warning, but it turns out that like if we're like right now, you're down there for me, the because then what goes on is that as we're having this discussion, we can see each other's reactions to this, and it's much more, it's easier for people to watch. In the movies, when they want to show you something sad, they don't show you the sad thing, they show you somebody crying. And then we all, because of our mirror neurons, we all end up feeling sad. So our mirror neurons going like, that person's sad, I feel so sad. Ah, it's like mirror neurons are these incredible socially engaging neurons that we're all set up with. And so if you make a joke and you guys laugh, ha ha ha, right? Then that's great. Now, so what I try to do is I will try to kind of, when we're kind of there, group discussions, the more you can get a few people on there, the more interesting those are going to be. But then you're going to find that somebody who's in there, they're like, why am I still on the screen? Like, I'm like, and like, so if I'm kind of getting the vibe that Amy is like not down with this, then I want to take her off, right? And so just, you want to be kind of reading people's body languages. And and another thing that's really useful to do in these conversations is just to have the chat open. So have the chat open, and you see that somebody somebody makes an interesting comment in there in the chat, right? Then you can say like, oh, such and such, that, you just made an interesting comment in the chat. Is it okay if I bring you on? All right, and then you can bring them into the conversation. Another thing that you can do as if you are a facilitator, right now on all of your screens, you've got it set up so that you're seeing Evea and myself side by side. But right now, I'm actually looking at the gallery view. So I'm watching everybody there, right? So you can sort of see what people are thinking and feeling, if people are kind of going, or if people are like, ooh, right? So Sarah's got kind of a really relevant thought on this. Sarah, is it okay if I bring, so I see that you're not able to kind of join. Oh yeah, there you are. So I'm going to bring Sarah in on this. See what I just did? We're doing this. Isn't this meta, right?
High five.
Yeah, there you go. So yeah, and you've got some thoughts about also kind of people's joining in from audio. So what are your thoughts about that?
Well, part of it's because I host and administrate a meeting once a month for some volunteers. And I noticed that for some people who can't join via audio, they're always left out of the conversation. Like that's partly because the moderator isn't paying attention that Evea isn't able to join via audio, and every once in a while we need to say, hey, did you have a comment? And then pause and let her say something instead of just zooming on, like galloping on. The other thing is like our moderator in that particular meeting is always like this. So he's never actually looking at responses and looking at the fact that somebody's raising their hand and saying, oh, I have something to say. So it's really important to be engaging with the video as well, even if you're not looking directly at the camera button, but at least because sometimes I end up looking up there or over there at somebody's face, but at least if we're looking at the computer we're using, then we can see that other people do have reactions and put their hand up literally or something.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, those reactions, the raise hand button, that, right? Really, really useful thing. But depending on some people's devices, they have a hard time. That doesn't show up on some devices, right? So I'm going to lower my hand here. And I'm going to bring Ray Bonto in on this. So you've got your hand
No, I
up.
just raised. No, I just raised my hand.
You're just raising your hand to because you can, right? But so those are kind of useful things. But just sort of want to let folks know that something that I found is just really helpful in this is to have that chat open, and also to have the gallery view open as I'm moderating. And that helps me just sort of kind of handle these things. All right. Oh, I need to bring Avea. What are your thoughts on that?
Sorry, bad timing on my part, but I also agree about the gallery view. That's something that I do in Pencil Miles and Chill regularly. And I do it specifically because sometimes we get people who might be a bit shy, or maybe either it's their first time and they want to speak up, or a lot of times what will happen too is because it's an open conversation, people will begin talking all at once. And then I'll pay attention to the people, because usually then only one person goes forward so that we can all hear each other. I'll pay attention to the people who stop talking and then don't say anything else. And I'll say, hey, so-and-so, did you have something that you wanted to say? Because I want to make sure that the shy people get a chance to speak as well. And sometimes they might need a little bit more encouragement, or they might need an assurance that we want to hear what they have to say and we want to listen. So another vote, +1 vote for why a gallery view is wonderful.
Excellent. Can I also just point out another kind of meta thing going on right now? Right now, if you open your chat, you'll notice a comment from Avea that says, use the reaction buttons, especially the raise hands feature, ! So we were just talking about that, and she put it in there. So you can use the chat to reinforce key points. It's difficult, though, to do two things at the same time, which is one reason having a co-host is huge. So let's just sort of talk about this co-host concept. So Avea, you have totally had my back on all of the online programs I have. You're always there as my co-host. And what do you sort of see? And you're doing an awesome job on that. I'd love to hear from some of your thoughts about how to be a rock star co-hoster.
Absolutely. Okay, and this is from my experience as a co-host, and also when Ann Chadwick had my back as my co-host. So for one thing is that a lot of times a host will be in a slideshow or in a place where they're just trying to really, really focus on the lesson. So the co-host can help by monitoring the chat, by noticing when people have questions, by waiting till there's a good pausing point, or by also interacting with the chat and answering questions. Like, it helps to have a list of links off to the side, so that way when people ask questions like, oh, what was that link again? Oh, where do you find that store item? You know, or then you can just pop it right in and answer their question smoothly. Especially if it's a thing that you co-host regularly and some of the links are the same, then you have them just right offhand. One thing I do is I have a copy paste for, like, when I want to remind people to please donate to Jack because he's amazing and because his classes are for free, I have already a pre-written thing, so I don't have to go madly typing at the end of every lesson. And then sometimes as a host, if you're inside of like a slideshow, then your co-host might be able to read the chat when you can't, because sometimes the controls get kind of weird about looking at the chat. And so I remember when I'm teaching my botany classes, Anne would say, Ivea, we have a question here about so-and-so, because I can't myself read it. So the co-host can help by monitoring that. If you are somebody with social anxiety, then it can kind of help to write down and practice phrases that you can say over and over again. So like, for example, oh, hey, so-and-so, may I help you? Or, you know, oh, here is this answer. Or I will ask that as soon as there's a good stopping point, kind of thing. And then that can kind of help, yeah. Are there any other ideas you have?
I just want to say, the programs go so much better when you've got my back on these. So if you're doing one on your own and you find another person who's doing stuff on your own, you can actually be co-hosts for each other. Or if there's somebody else who's willing to be co-host and help you, that's awesome. Let's bring in Amy on this.
I was going to say, Amy is an amazing co-host for Melinda as well, and she's the one who showed me the co-hosting ropes. I also noticed that Sarah is saying co-hosts can also help monitor muting everybody if needed and also allowing the waiting room, but I'm going to let Amy say something.
I was just wanting to highlight what Sarah said in the chat about helping monitor muting people. Some people, especially me, after I talk, I forget to mute myself again. And there may be a bunch of background noise that is really distracting, especially if you're recording the meeting. And so just muting people is very helpful.
Yeah.
Can you think of anything else that has helped you as one of Melinda's co-hosts? Because I find that you are extremely smooth at it, and you oftentimes catch me when I mess up. So what other tips would you have after being Melinda's co-host?
I mean, you think of things when I forget them. So I think we're really great working together. But give me a minute, let me think about that.
Yeah, it's one of these kind of it takes a village thing, because if you're teaching, like, your brain is full, right? We talked before in all sorts of other contexts about cognitive load. Like, if you want to be monitoring the chat and doing this and doing this and doing this, you can do a few of those things, but the more you try to do, the more your brain will implode.
Answering technical questions is a big one. Like, if someone's having trouble with Zoom, they can't get their audio or video to work, or just, helping answer people's questions. Sometimes it'll be a question about, like, what kind of pen is that? And, since I've co-hosted with Melinda a lot, I can answer those questions instead of interrupting her flow on teaching.
Nice. Sarah's also been dropping some thoughts into the chat on this. Sarah, can I bring you in again? See, isn't this fun? Like, now we're all here, so just sort of notice that this is a lot better than just one. Like, if it gets too many, then we become really, really small. But this feels kind of conversational, right? And just sort of in the background, I'm noticing Amy just talked. If Amy kind of starts doing this sort of a thing, then I'm thinking, like, maybe she doesn't want to be on the screen right now. But people who are, like, looking up at the screen and kind of doing this sort of thing, then that's like positive feedback, like, you can keep them on the screen. But the minute people start kind of doing this sort of a thing, then like, you can get them off. All right, hey, Sarah, so what were some of your thoughts?
Well, one was that one of the things that I experienced last night, I was signed up with Sonoma Land Trust for a webinar, and the host couldn't get his slideshow to load. And it was, I could see that he was getting really stressed, because I know him so well. He was like pan-faced, but still I could see that he was, like, really stressed. Ends up that his computer completely crashed. So he had to end up getting on Zoom on his phone to be able to reconnect with us and say, I'm going to have to reschedule this. So one of the things I think I noticed during Wild Wonder was that the co-host or hosts had been previously sent the slideshow or the video link, so that if the host was having difficulty, or, we're all, no matter how much we do public speaking, we all get nervous when we're going to do it, and something happens and you're kind of like, oh, glitch, I can't get that to load, then the co-host is prepared to help get that going smoothly for the host. And I like that, because that just gives you so much more confidence and support being a host. So that's something I've observed. I haven't hosted really anything other than simple meetings. Oh, I did do one seminar class last spring, and I did have somebody help me with that. And I ended up having to have 2 computers, because I couldn't figure out how to share my screen and also read my notes off of a PowerPoint. So that was kind of a weird situation too.
Yeah, thank you.
Also, sometimes just knowing that someone has your back, like, has a calming effect. And then also, they can tell, like, when you're starting to get kind of nervous during the meeting, and they might just jump in there, or help you out.
Yeah. And Ray Bonto just made a really good point. Just the other day, I was leading a workshop, and my computer crashed in the middle of the workshop. But because Ivea was a co-host, the meeting continued on. I was able then to go restart my computer and rejoin my meeting, right? And it was still going on. And then Ivea brought me back in and then made me a co-host with her. that was pretty slick.
Actually, that's the fun thing that Zoom does itself, is that I've noticed that Zoom will sometimes keep the meeting going even if there's no co-host selected, but then what they'll do is they'll randomly choose. So when you actually came back in, I actually didn't have to sign you in or make you the host. Zoom recognized you as the true leader on its own.
Zoom.
So Zoom being awesome. But what did help was that you called me to tell everybody that you would be right back. And so I was able to do that, and everybody remained in the meeting. And in the meantime, we were going to start practicing drawing bird heads so that we could get used to quick sketching. And then there you were. And another thing is that Jack's already really good at doing this, but it's something good to check in with about if you're a co-host talking to a host, is check in and see who's going to do the spotlighting. And because then sometimes you'll get a host who might have trouble keeping up with that. Like sometimes I know that when Melinda's having the group discussion, I'll be the one who goes around and quickly finds everybody who wants to talk, and like I'll spotlight them as fast as I can so that way they're sharing the screen with Melinda. Jack's already really good at doing that himself. It's good to talk about it together, because otherwise sometimes you'll see like in our things, like there was a while there where Jack and I would try to click on the same person at the same time, and the person would flash on the screen for a brief second and then suddenly disappear again, or else we'd try to unclick them and the person would be off the screen and then suddenly they're back again, like, what am I doing back here? No. And then it's like, okay, we need to communicate. So now I step back, I let Jack do that. So another thing is that it's good to check in with your host and co-host in advance, so that way you know who's doing what roles. Melinda's really good at doing that with myself and Amy. If she has all three of us, then we talk about who's going to do which, like who does the links, who does the spotlighting, who does the muting and letting people in, and like undoing the waiting room, that kind of thing. So another co-hosting tip.
Nice. So let's also talk a little bit about how to some kind of techie things. Does anybody have any? I want to share one kind of gee whizzy techie thing with people, and it's something that I can't use because my computer is not a modern enough version. But so I've started teaching some classes for this group called Sketchbook School, and they sent out a message to all of their instructors saying, hey folks, you should use this free software to help you kind of get the flow in your workshops and meetings going. My computer can use an old version of this, but I haven't yet sort of, figured out the wrinkles of how to do it. But if you have a computer that is not a dinosaur like mine, no disrespect to dinosaurs, you folks did a great job for a really, really long time. You are not an example of something that didn't work. Dinosaurs worked really, really, really well. So please excuse me for using the dinosaur metaphor to refer to out-of-date technology. I don't think any of us would have done equally well during the meteorite impact. And so that's not the dinosaurs' fault, right? But the technology is called, just put it into the chat. And you can look up online. And I'm gonna go share so right now I have switched over to my camera, and what it does is it allows me to put up all sorts of see, like I would be able to be here if I had a kind of a better camera in a computer that's able to do this, I would have a little silhouetted me against whatever text I want to have up there. But as you can see, my little screen is not really compatible with this much technology. But this would be, in an ideal world, a little floating image of Jack sitting in front of whatever text screen I would want to have. Similarly, it can put you in front of, it could be some text. It could also be my drawing tablet there behind me. And so I could draw, and you'd see a little me in the corner going like, oh, hi, I'm Jack, right? And with the drawing of whatever's going on behind me. So it's a software for integrating the video image and sources from other feeds, whether those are slides that you want to prepare, or another screen. Just my computer is too slow to really make this work. However, if I had a system that was a little bit better, this could be pretty cool. Only problem is, if I upgrade my computer, then I have to upgrade all my software, and I don't want to have to go buy the new version of Photoshop. So that's why I keep my old computer. So that is, and there's somebody's, yeah, there's, I think that for other people who have a more modern computer, there isn't this sort of weird voice delay. So let me stop, go out of this kind of view. But I wanted to put that on people's radar, for people who have a more modern system. There's a sort of a base version of, I guess, is free for people to download. And so if it works on your computer, you might kind of get it, mess around with it, see if that works for you. With my status and my technology, it's not going to happen. Does anybody have any other kind of cool new innovations to share with the crew here? So that could be technology, could be cameras, it could be kind of ways of facilitating things in these Zoom meetings.
It's not exactly like a new technology, but it's a fun thing that has worked before for me. So when I was teaching the botany classes, I'd had this part where I wanted to do spot the plant family of the day member, sort of like a quiz kind of a thing, just to make it more interactive for people. And I'd at first just had it so that people could kind of guess in their brains, but Melinda alerted me to the, to the voting feature, where you can take polls, or like where people can vote. And so instead we used that as a class format, so that way people could guess the answers, and we could just for funsies see how many people guessed which answers, which could be fun, because then it was sort of like it was a way of testing to see if people were understanding the materials, or if we needed to go over it more. But also it just gave people kind of a game show feeling to it. I'm told that that was the most fun part of the class for people. So Zoom itself might have some really good features that you can use in that way to make things more interactive. Even though I know that that's not like a different tech, but yeah, use the poll feature to make it interactive. Sometimes if you have a big enough group, then having breakout rooms is a great way of doing things as well. With the newer Zoom tech as well, this is something that happened during Wild Wonder that you could possibly have on your own classes, is that if you want to break out classes into certain kinds of discussions, and you decide to use the Zoom rooms or the breakout rooms, you can name the breakout rooms different things and let people choose which room they go to, if they have the updated technology. Otherwise, you have to manually assign them. But then like they can choose whether they want to go to that room that's about, reptiles need more love, or they can choose whether they want to go to that room about, how do we work on the values, or, the let's rock room, all about all of the all of the geology and stuff, and then you can like rickroll everybody in that room. Anyways, and so then like you can have those rooms and have people choose. Although it's important to also know, I think it's important that if you're using the online tech, and this is something I myself need to do more of, try practicing it on the computer, on the iPad, and on the phone, so that way you have an idea of everybody's different platforms, and make even a list for yourself about what features people do and do not access. So that way you'll have an answer for them and you won't get kind of be fumbling and stuck about how to help people. So that's just a recommendation I have, because everybody will have different tech versions and whatnot. And so that is what I thank you. And I'll turn it to you, Jack.
Excellent. Some really great strategies there. We've got breakout rooms. We've got the polls feature. Rebecca, do you want to tell us a little bit about Jamboard?
Yeah, sure. So I haven't used it a whole lot, but I just was at the NJEF conference last week and also last year, and they use it a lot, really effectively. And so if anyone's not familiar with Jamboard, it's one of the Google applications that just like Google Docs, Google Drive, you know, all of that. So you probably all have access to it if you have Google. So it's just, you can set up a Jamboard and put a link in the chat, and then people go to the link and then they can all interact with the Jamboard and put like for example, you could ask a question for everybody, like to write their thoughts, and then everybody can put on a little like virtual sticky note. Yeah, it's like a whiteboard that everybody can participate in. So it's a really nice way to get everybody involved in interacting with something with a very short amount of time.
Oh, that's really helpful. So Jamboard, it's a free free app from our Google. So that'd be a really good thing to check out. I think I need to get comfortable with that. I've seen people use it and seen people use it really effectively, but I thought to myself, like, I'll bet that's hard to set up, but it's not that bad.
It's pretty easy. I've used it a couple times. And I see Aisha has her hand up.
Oh, great. Hold on a second here. Aisha. Oh, you're currently muted.
There we go. Thanks, Rebecca, for noticing my hand. See, takes a village. The thought that suddenly came to my mind, especially as she said Jamboard and other things or breakout rooms, is when we were first at my school starting to teach online, one of the ways we helped each other is by having little mini groups among ourselves and just practicing on each other and setting up Zoom meetings and, you know, putting each other in breakout rooms or doing Jamboard sessions on each other, because we were so nervous about screwing up during the actual teaching that we practiced with our fake audiences and kind of did that as a favor to each other, you know. And even just doing the, you know, at the beginning, even switching hosts felt so difficult. So we would get online, I'd get online with just another teacher buddy, and we just back and forth and screen share. Okay, your turn to screen share. Okay, your turn to put up the Jamboard and try and work it. So I just want to say that every time you're adding in a new piece for yourself, it's really helpful if you have a buddy who will do a mini fake Zoom lesson with you till you get comfortable. I don't know about other people here, but I was very, very uncomfortable with new technology. So I really needed to practice with somebody before I had students in front of me, especially because I kind of went into brain freeze. Like there's only so much I can do, and I need to practice these technologies in advance before I can use them with a live audience. So that's all.
That's a really good thought. That makes a lot of sense. Sort of, and just to get, and it sort of ties into what Ivea was saying before about kind of try it with different devices, just kind of learn your way around it. I'm going to bring Ray Bonto in on this. Yes.
So another useful platform is Padlet. Melinda uses that. It's like the host puts up a question, a topic, and you can all take photos, put files and comments to send a picture on that topic, and then people can comment on it. And it's not public like Facebook.
So in Padlet, you're saying that there is that all the like everybody here could on that Padlet add in files that they have on their computer. Let's say I had a scan of some journal page that I did. I could put that up on that Padlet and people would be able to see.
Yeah, you could do that. You also could take the Padlet helps you take a selfie photo using the computer.
Oh.
I
So
did
just hold
that.
your journal up to it and then go gazunk.
Yeah, I did that on Wild Wonder 2020. So I used it once, but it was amazing.
Great. And does that work? Is that something that would work? Somebody's wondering, is that something that only works on with an iPad, or is that just Padlets? Its names look like a pad of paper, so it's not necessarily an iPad sort of a thing. You can use. People say you can use it from your computer. That's really cool. Yeah, the Padlet and the what is that other? Somebody just mentioned Padlet and well, that's why I have the recording of the chat.
Rebecca is mentioning a platform called Kahoot or something.
Interesting. That's cool. Thank you. That's very, very useful. So, and sometimes you may want to have your class be just like, you're going to deliver a bunch of information, but something I think that a lot of us are finding is that like this sort of thing where we get to talk, where Ray Bonto is telling me something and I can ask you about it, and we kind of go back and forth with this. This sort of interaction is good. Human beings, we like interaction. Also, it's interesting, like with the Nature Journal Club, yesterday we had a 1-hour class. The class lasted 3 hours. I got done with the lesson actually in 1 hour, and then we hung around and we just talked with each other for 2 hours about all sorts of journaling related things and some non-journaling related things. And the more that we can kind of create these spaces to be interactive, and so we kind of got relationships with each other, I think that is something that is surprising. It is the way that it is working on these sources. You guys want to see another techie thing? I showed this before, but it bears repeating again in case you're just joining us for the first time. That's my phone. This is my phone charging cable, and I've got it tied into my computer. This is me switching to my computer view. Look, there's my backyard. Look, there's my computer. Here is the Inception black hole. All right. Look at that. Here's me. What? Right. So what I'm doing is I'm kind of scanning around. Check out this. This is me with a little kind of clippy gizmo. I'm going to switch cameras. The program that I'm using to sort of show you this camera, this is Reincubate Camo, and it is a free program that turns your telephone, here my iPhone, into a document camera. So if I want that kind of document camera effect, what I'm going to do is that there's a lot of versions of things like you can buy online that look absolutely identical to this, where there's a little kind of grabby claw. and then a little thing that you can put onto your table. And so if you are looking for the low budget document camera, here's this bad boy over my table. I'm going to take my telephone and I'm going to put it in here and put that pointing down and put something there. Let's just go back to the way this works on Zoom on your manager end. You download the Camo app onto your phone. You download the Camo program onto your computer. You open both of them up and the phone talks to your computer. And also what happens is on Zoom, when I have that plugged in, you see the bottom of, at least if you're using a computer, it says stop video down there in the corner. There's a little up caret next to that. I go on that little up caret and it has a list where I get to select my camera. And I see reincubate Camo right there. I select that, and just like that, I am a little bit of a delay, a little bit of a lag with it, right? But isn't that cool? Right, and I can turn this around so that you can then, oops, that's off the screen. Where am I on the screen? Right there on the screen. So I could put my little pad of paper out here. I can, at very low cost, do a drawing demonstration for you. Let's go do that. If I have a piece of paper and I want to make a little drawing, I can now do that on the screen. And that program is free. I like free.
Jack, is the audio coming from your phone or your computer when you're doing this?
So I have, under that same kind of caret place, I can also, do you see where there's that little mute button on the left-hand side of your screen if you're using a laptop? Here's me muted. This is what I sound like. That was helpful, wasn't it? Underneath that, I can use this microphone. I'm able to change microphones. I can, here's my microphone. So I'm now on the Camo microphone. Here is built-in internal microphone for my computer, built-in internal microphone for my computer. So Zoom allows you to bounce around to, you could use the microphone that is on your camera, you could use the microphone that is on your computer, and you get to, the Camo mic was choppy. So so right now I have it on. Yeah. So is my audio good right now when I'm talking like this? Do I have good audio? Thumbs up from Amy. Okay. So here I am using that same audio, and I am also able to draw at the same time. That big pause wasn't because of I had bad audio. It was because it's hard for me to think and draw at the same time. Let me see here. So that I find it's really helpful if you're teaching online to have some form of a document camera. And so that is that's just it's a really low cost way to kind of engage with that. Other tech things. And look, these little handlebars. The one that I got is the Lamical, Lamical, Lamical. And there's a lot that I saw online. They all look the same. This one, it's tough. Lamical, yes, just like that. We've got 6 minutes left to give any other strategies that people have. Let's bounce over to Sarah. Add you in the spotlight. Hey there.
Hi. So I put this in the chat a couple of minutes ago, so it'll be recorded. But I think another important thing as we're doing these kind of live things is to maybe set audience group rules. Like at the beginning of at the introduction, you might want to say, there's going to be times in this program when we're going to mute everybody in audio and video. Just wanted to let you all know that. We'll announce it when it happens. We'd appreciate it if you're going to eat or you have distractions in your background that you mute your video. That's another point, because that's really super distracting. And then the other thing is to make sure that everybody knows if it's going to be recorded, you really have to announce that at the very beginning, because people have personal reasons not to be on video. And I think it's actually California state law that you have to ask or announce that so that people have the option, because it's illegal. I think it's illegal to record minors without, anyway, I don't know, but laws aside, it can be really uncomfortable for some people because they don't want to have their face visible for a personal or even a reason for safety or whatever. So those are some things that I have observed.
Yeah. And Zoom also has that message. This meeting is being recorded.
Yes.
Yeah. Something that's also kind of fun to do that we've been doing in the some of the Ask Jack and Nature Journal workshop things along that line is that at the end we can turn the recording off. I will say, like, okay, I will have whatever kind of closing thoughts that I had for people. I then stop the recording. The meeting is still going on. And then I now let people know that you are now not being recorded. And what we find is that there's a number of people who will then kind of boop, 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 and they've got comments, thoughts, and ideas. But they just didn't want to be on there before for something that was going to be then put on YouTube. So having a time where you turn off the camera is also makes it a more inviting space for some people. Thank you for those thoughts. All right. Now I'm jumping back to anybody else have any new strategies, thoughts, ideas, things that are working for you in your online teaching environment? Things that are working for you. We share these ideas. We make everybody's programs better.
I have a question.
Yes.
I remember that you'd recently put up that poll for us to choose the new time, but I can't remember what was the program that you used to create that poll?
That was a doodle poll.
Doodle poll.
Doodle. So Doodle is the free version that I use. When people go to the poll, there are some advertisements on it. And so they get paid because people saw those, but I didn't have to pay anything because you guys had to look at some advertisements. Sorry about the advertisements. And then it allowed people to select, I could do it this time, this time, this time, this time. It automatically tallies those for me.
What is there like a special website that you go to for it?
I think doodle.com.
Just Doodle. Okay, doodle.com.
Yeah, doodle.com. It allows you to make online polls of different types. Some people can kind of write in answers, others they're checking things, others if you're trying to schedule things, it will give like a calendar, and you can click all the times that work for you, and then it will tally those and sort of so it has a number of different functions like that. I first tried to do that with its calendar function and then got confused by it, and so ended up just doing kind of writing in those dates, those times myself, and also wrote in some of the times wrong. I always get confused about like what is 12 a.m. and 12 p.m. It's not the, I always have to remember that it's not the way that I think it should be. Ray Bonto, thank you for putting in the link for Doodle Online.
Also, it looks like Jackie has a question for you. Jackie has a question about live classes.
Yes.
Hi, can I speak?
Oh yes, hold on a second. We're going to, yeah. Hey there.
Hi, so I finally stuck my head out and I said I would teach a class to a group of students who are newly immigrating. They just got here a couple of months ago from Congo. And their age is between 8 and 14. And I tried it last week. I was very nervous because I never taught kids that's not my own kids. And you know, your own kids, you know how to manage them. So my question is that I came with a plan. I didn't memorize your class activity, but I thought, okay, surely I've done this long enough. I can do it. It went okay. The kids were really attentive, but I started to lose the younger ones because they're young, they're 8 years old, and they started to want to wander off to do something else, which is okay by me if it's in my own house, you know. But we were taking lessons in a parking lot because it has to be outdoors. And there's not a whole lot of, this is a church parking lot, so not a whole lot of cars. Do you have a strategy of holding them on and coming back without being punitive? Because there's these two other teachers there, and they said something that was really interesting, that said that we'll deduct your points if you start moving off. And I was thinking, oh no, that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. You know, we don't need to have point, you know, demerit system here. But how do I actually bring them back?
Yeah, I would agree with your general assessment there that probably threats, not the best way.
It just doesn't, it's not how it, you know, how I want it to be.
Right.
But I don't have your magical powers.
What was the age range?
8 to 14.
8 to 14. So yeah, that's a huge range. That's a huge range. And one way to handle that might be to start people with an activity that they can all do and that the younger people can continue with, and then have kind of an extension for the older kids, so that the younger ones have something to do there if they are losing their focus. Another way of handling that is Ray Bonto mentioned about playing a game with it. Do you have a copy of How to Teach Nature Journaling?
Yeah.
In there's a number of games. There are a number of games that you can play. For instance, everybody go find a plant, you draw and describe and document that plant in your journal, and then you come back and you get a partner, and then you try to see if your partner can find your plant based on the notes that you took.
That was actually the one I thought would work. It said that I scouted around the parking lot, the weeds and all. I'm not sure how far they're allowed to wander off.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So with different age groups, you give sort of different boundaries.
Okay. Where they can go.
Mm-hmm.
Does Ray want to? I mean, I was wondering. He said a game. Is there a specific game other than the mystery plant game that could be used? Do you have any ideas too? Because I see that at 14 years old wants to continue with their drawing, and it was really interesting because they had a lot more language than I expected, and it was awesome. They used the 3 things. I was like, oh, the older kids did it, but the younger ones, they didn't have spelling.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to make them feel burdened by having to spell correctly, or to.
Definitely not. Yeah. Yeah. Don't worry about spelling. Don't worry about pretty pictures. Don't worry about computation. But we still want to use words, pictures, and numbers. But, you know, I invite them to spell like me. Right? And my spelling is all over the map. I'm going to bring Aisha and Alexa both have some thoughts here that I think might contribute to this. Let's start with Aisha and then bounce over to Alexa.
Thanks. Yeah, Jackie, even within the same age group, even if they're all 8 or all 10, I find that you have to be prepared for completely different levels of engagement. And my thoughts would be, decide which group you want to be with most. Are you focusing on the ones who are going to stay engaged longer? And then usually I had a plan for the kids who finished early. And that can even change from week to week, who finishes early, just based on what mood they're in, right? But you get to know the group. And if usually I didn't have a second adult, but it sounds like you have other adults. If I had no other adult, I had something very simple set up, like you can free draw now. And often kids just love doing that. They can draw their hearts and their unicorns, or, you know, whatever they want to draw. And especially if you have to keep them nearby and there's nobody to supervise them, but just be ready. You know, like Sarah said, it could be hula hoops or this and that, but if you have no setup, then it can just be free draw. But otherwise, I'd say I'd go in with some plan with what I'm going to talk to the other 2 teachers and be like, anybody who starts wandering off, this is what you can do with them that has nothing to do with nature journaling anymore. They're done. And then you can stay deeply with the ones who are still going, right? Because, you know, you're there for the nature journaling, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, or even just like a run around, you know, if there's a designated spot, everybody can just run and start.
Oh, they're good at that.
Start a tag game, you know, just like, okay, you're gonna go play tag, and those are your boundaries, and carry on.
Yeah. Thank you.
I have a couple of insights. We led an after-school virtual nature journal club for kids last year, 3rd to 5th graders. And we really went into it intentionally, like structuring and thinking about how much time kids would be able to focus. And so we started off always with like an introduction and had the kids go around and share something that they, you know, had been thinking about or excited about lately. And then we would always start with like a mindful drawing warm-up, which most of those I pulled from one of my new favorite people, Wendy McNaughton. She has a show called Draw Together on Instagram, and now she's expanding it to other places, but she's has a background as a social worker, but is also an artist and an art educator. And she is just fantastic. So there's like one that we would do where we would have the kids draw a spiral really slowly and keep their lines really close together. And as they're doing that, you just encourage them to take a few breaths. And it's helpful for me too, even as a, you know, the facilitator, to have that time to breathe a little bit. So we would start with one of those as well. And then there were a couple games that we would play. There was one called Drawing Telephone, or that's what I would call it, where you would have one person choose an object to look at in their room that nobody else could see. And then they would describe it, but they could only use shapes and positions or like directions. So, you know, they could say, okay, so there's a triangle at the middle and it's fairly large. And then to the right of that, there's a line that goes straight out. And so they lead you through drawing this object. And then at the end, you all show and try to guess, you know, what it was. But that was a pretty fun one. And I want to try to connect it with adults into like geometric drawing, I think. So that was one that I was thinking about. We also would often warm up with blind contours. And another fun one was what we called Zoomy Mysteries. We had this really fun Zoomy lens that we could connect into our computer and then use it as another camera and like zoom in really close on things and ask the students to guess what they thought it was and why they thought it might be that and what they were noticing. And then my last piece of advice is just sometimes when we had students finish earlier than others, I would just ask them to start sharing about their entry or what they had been working on, or ask to see it and see if I could, ask them a few other questions for things that they could consider adding. So some insights from our after school club last year.
That's really, really useful. That's great. Thank you.
Thank you.
See, that's why we've got this Nature Journal Club Educators Forum. We get this critical mass of all of these thoughts and ideas, and we are better together. Thank you, Aisha and
Thank
Alexa.
you. I'll report back.
Excellent. And yeah, just one other thought that I might add is that very often you are going to see you set up whatever activity you've got, and kids settle down, they start doing it, and you think, okay, it's going to work this time. And then 3 minutes later, there's a kid who goes, okay, I'm done. And you're like, no, we just started, right? And then another kid goes, oh yeah, I'm done. Right. So there'll be these kids who they're done, and they're done really, really, really fast. One way that I handle that now is I preempt done by letting them know that you're going to start this activity, and a few minutes in it, it'll happen at different points. Like some people, it'll be 10 minutes into it. Other people, just 3 minutes into it. But you're going to get the feeling that you're done, right? And that done actually has nothing to do with making observations, because we can always observe more about something. But what has happened is your brain has basically said, I think I've got the basics of this, and for my survival, I don't really need to pay attention anymore. And your brain is then ready to move on to the next thing. So what I challenge people to do is to notice for themselves the point at which they feel done. Notice the point at which you feel done, and then just continue with the activity and see what is the most interesting question or observation that you can make on the other side of feeling done. And so just notice that when you get that feeling of being done, that's the point at which you usually stop paying attention. And everything on the other side of that is the undiscovered country. And we want to kind of go into that land and see what we discover there. So let them know that they will get this feeling of being done. And when they get the feeling of being done, to persevere with it and see what they discover beyond that wall that we usually don't pierce. That may be useful.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you so much for being with us. I'm going to bring Aisha on for one last comment, and then we will be wrapping up our discussion for the day. Yes.
And put my hand down. So I'm writing my notes so fast. I just wanted to throw this out and ask what other people think too. Sometimes I had a group where somebody was so restless. It's all about time, sense of time. And they just didn't know how long 5 minutes was versus say the 20 to 30 minutes. And I tried one of those, those teachers have those big clocks that you move the red thing and then it slowly ticks and everybody can sort of see what it is, instead of only me knowing that there's 5 minutes left, everybody knows we still have a good 20 minutes. And with my very restless, if I had a very restless kid, I'd say, you can look at this, and this is how long we will be drawing for. You can do more, but this is the minimum, you know, building focus. And I'm just wondering what other people have thought, because it's also kind of like, I love getting away from time and the ticking clock when I'm drawing. But that's me. It felt like some of my challenge students needed that. So I'm just wondering what other educators think.
Yeah, the time is a weird thing. There's the experience that you have of doing something, and if you get into a flow state and you kind of really get pulled in by the phenomenon, time dilates, and so either it feels like it speeds up or slows down. So time is this very relative thing depending on our mind state. What I usually do is, most kids are not wearing a watch. And so I will tell them that you have, 16 and a half minutes to do this. So I will give some sort of non-standard kind of time frame for something. And what that does is it makes it feel like, gosh, there's a little bit of urgency to this, because at 16 and a half minutes, something else is going to happen. For some reason, 16 and a half minutes, it seems like you'd better get on the case more than if you have 15 minutes, because 15 minutes, we've had 15 minutes to do something before, but 16 and a half minutes, like, oh my gosh, I better find my plant and get to work. And then I'm usually not wearing a watch. And when I tell them 16 and a half minutes, I don't look at them. If I am wearing one, I don't look at it. And what I do is I look at the kids. And if the kids are really kind of grooving on this, then I let time go further. And if the kids are getting restless, and you sort of see by their body language, okay, they're ready to go, maybe time gets that we're going to end more quickly. For instance, if it's cold, if it's hot, if it's like really windy, kids' span of focus is going to be much, much shorter. And so I will kind of flex it depending on the feedback that I'm getting from their body language. Another thing that works really well is, say, anybody who wants a little bit more time, put your hand on your head or raise your hand. And raise your hand if you'd like a little bit more time with this. And then you see a number of hands go up. And you can go like, all right, let's take 3 more minutes just to wrap up whatever it is that you're working on right now. 3 more minutes. And then again, I'm not really looking at 3 minutes. I'm just kind of gestalting some 3 minutes. And then those are some of the strategies that I use for kind of managing time, because most often, nobody wears a watch anymore. And so you can have 16 and a half minutes be as long or as short as you want. Any other thoughts on this topic? Here I am, I'm bouncing over to the gallery view, scanning those faces, looking for hands up. Other thoughts, comments, suggestions, or ideas? Avea has got the timer feature. So how does that look?
Oh, I'm not sure quite how to describe it, but if I look at the upper right corner of where I can see everybody's faces, then I can see it says 1 hour, 15 minutes, and 22 seconds and counting. I go into my Zoom features for that, so that way I can always see exactly how long a meeting's been running.
Which reminds me that we've been here for more than an hour, and we probably should pull this session of the Nature Journal Educators Forum to a close so that we can eat our lunches and get about the rest of the day. But we hope that you got some strategies today to help you with your online lessons, both kind of technical things of how you can set up a camera. But we also had some really, really interesting ideas today about how to kind of promote discussions and foster community with your groups. So I'm going to suggest that everybody bounce over to your bounce over to your gallery view so you can wave goodbye to everybody and see all your friends here. Hey, everybody. Thank you all for being here and for sharing your best thoughts and ideas. Thank you also for connecting children, adults, and everybody in between with the world of nature through art, journaling, and deep observation. Look forward to seeing you again. And Alexa is doing a nature journaling program this evening. Oh, fantastic. I hope it goes really well. You can, it might be fun just, before you go, like, see, like, you can get, like, I can turn my phone into this other camera, like all these sorts of crazy things. And have fun, everybody. Thank you for being here. We'll see you again.
Thank
Bye.
you, Jack.
Thank you.
Bye, Jack. Thank you.
Arpan, good to see you.
Good to see you, Jack. How are you?
I'm doing really well. Doing really, really well. Oops, I thought I turned off.